just see. We're going to go ahead and start. We are, again, I can't underscore how great the silver lining is to this whole pandemic is the fact that we get to have folks come in and present that we would never get to see. And so I'm very excited because DaCdb is such a big part of most of our clubs and certainly our district that there are just a lot of things, little tips and techniques that we all don't know. So I've invited Mike and Lynn. Lynn is the assistant here, going to be answering all your questions. But I've invited them to do a presentation. So I'm not going to take more time. Please, Mike, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Again, I am Mike Soden. I have been a Rotarian since 2003. I have been with DaCdb for almost the entire time since 2003. I'm a two-time past president. I'm also the current DCO for District 5300 and District 7600. And I'm also the RPIC, which is the Assistant Rotary Public Image Coordinator for Zone 26. I'd also would like to introduce Lynn Kelly, who is one of our support managers and also a Rotarian in her own right, along with the fact she's the district admin for 7730. So welcome, Lynn. And so having said that, let's kind of move on here. So we're going to move into my next screen. And one of the biggest challenges we have is called login. I'm not sure what the challenges are, so we're going to kind of cover that initially. But the basic 5 essentials that I think are important to a club are My Club, ROI integration, P-mail, Easy Bulletin, event calendar registration. And bear in mind, all of these that I just announced are all part of the package that the district pays for you all to have. And then we'll get into a couple premium modules, and then we'll talk a little bit about DaCdb support. So in saying that, let's kind of move on here. So I'm going to end this show, and we're going to move over to right here, and I'm going to bring this up. And we're going to go to DaCdb. So as you can see right now, I'm at the DaCdb screen. This is how you log into DaCdb. And we've changed the URL. It's become now DaCdb.com. We no longer use the directory online. So for those who may not know, it's been about a year now, but I just want to make sure that you all know that in the process. But in saying that, you're going to put in your username, which typically is going to be your email address. Then you're going to go to your password, which we no longer can control. That is something you're going to need to do. And when you look at the club number is really only important for those particular members that are level 5 and above. And that typically starts with your AGs. And then you move up to your committee chairs, things of that nature. And then you go on to level 7s, which would be like your DCO, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little button here, and I'm going to log in, and now I'm at my home screen in my district. Because we are, because of GDPR and that kind of stuff, I need to move over to what we call our test area. And in our test area, I'm going to join our Rotary Club 9969, and I'm also going to join the Hollywood, Florida Club. Or I shouldn't say Hollywood, Florida. Actually, they're one of our accounts, so that's why I said Hollywood, Florida, but our Hollywood Club. And going to change, and then we're going to move on over here. So once again, now I'm sitting in the Hollywood Club, and for the most part, most of you are going to be dealing in this one area in here. It's called My Club. So when I click on My Club, I now get all these different icons. Okay, so I can go to my calendar, I can go to my ROI compare, I can do my club members, all these different things that are going on. And the first one we're going to talk about is going to be club members and what you can do within the club members. So when I click on club members, I'm going to be taken to a screen, and you can see we got some very important people in the Hollywood Club. So the initial shot is I'm going to be looking at, these are my officers. So whether it be a VP or a president-elect or secretary, all of them will appear here. If I click on this blue button, it's going to take me right to their profile, which will then in turn, I'll click on Patrick Stewart here. It's going to give me all of their data. So if I need to know their phone number, things of that nature. I'm going to go back here. And so now we're back on this screen, and now I'm coming down to this area in here, and this is where all the members are. Now, because I'm a level 4 in your club, I have the ability to be able to do some other things, which we'll go through in a second. And I'm hoping you're able to see my cursor. I know it's a bit tough with it being as small as it is, but your active and your honorary members are always your first section. You'll then get, depending upon what you have going on here, we obviously have Rotary Youth Exchange that we put in here. Other members are usually people like friends of Rotary, guests, things of that nature that you still want to stay in touch with, so that you can actually P-mail them out, and we'll get into P-mail in a little bit as well. Here's your proposed members. One area that we can talk about very quickly has to do with if I want to add a new member. It's a very simple process. By doing that, if I click the admin and I drop down and I see the new member form, when I click on it, I not only can I send that out to the member, the potential member, but I also can have my secretary or membership chair go ahead and fill it all out. Once they fill it all out, automatically it's going to be put into what we call the proposed area, which happens to be this particular button here. Okay, and so you can see all these little people here. As far as adding the member to Rotary International, which we're going to get into ROI Compare in a minute, you have the ability to be able to, when you're sitting in and assuming the club has approved this particular person, or the board has approved, the club's approved, and now they're sitting in their induction day, what they're going to do is they're going to go ahead and click on this particular, and when I say they, I'm talking about your secretary, will click on this particular pencil here, and I'm just going to change it from proposed to active. Say I have all these different options as far as member types are concerned. I would simply go up here and add them to active. What that does is that sends a signal to Rotary International that we've just added this member. By the time that member leaves that particular meeting, not only have they gotten a welcome letter from the governor, but they've also gotten their RI number, and they're actually in now part of the member area in this particular area here. So all that's moved over. And there's several other different tabs that you can put in here. Sometimes we have satellite clubs, which is becoming bigger and bigger, and you can actually create your own satellite club and that sort of thing, so that you can track satellite members and that type of thing that's going on. Okay, as you'll also notice over here, you can look at obviously emails, cell phones, that sort of thing, what type of member they are. But I also have the ability to come up here and go to this little cog wheel. So if I click on the cog wheel, I can now basically drag and drop if I want to see other things within this particular screen. Like right now I only have that limited, but I might want to turn around and maybe throw in their, role level, or I might want to just drag in their photo. I go ahead and hit save configuration. Every member has the ability to have this same set of configuration that they're talking about. I can also reset my configuration to the standard reset. So once I go ahead and hit set my configuration, now you'll see where that particular action has been added to the screen. So anytime you're on a screen within DaCdb and you see this particular cogwheel up in here, you're going to be able to make some changes. So from a My Club standpoint, that's pretty much what you can do there. One thing I want to point out, which I'll get back to in a second, has to do with My Club and my shortcuts. The very top 6 in My Club are automatically going to appear on this side. So if I want to go back to the calendar, if I want to go to RI Compare, or if I want to go to my member club, I simply would click on it and it's there. We do the same type of thing for district. So if you'll notice, when we go back to My Club, here are all my club related icons, but then I can also go to district, and here's my district related icons. And as I said before, if we kind of run over this little cogwheel, I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to turn around and say I want to add my R2R icon, or let's just say I don't want to have my, let's see what I want to hear. Let's just kind of take out CRM. So now what I've done is I've reset this particular screen to only be the things I want to see. Now also, when I talked about the favorites, if you look at it, there's these little check marks, which I'm sure are probably a little bit tough to see based upon the size of your screen. That tells me that they are going to be in my favorites. That's what's going to appear on this left side that I showed you over here. Okay. So the next little tip we're going to talk about has to do with what we call RI integration. This allows the club to integrate with Rotary International. So if you remember what I just talked about before, that you're going to go ahead and add your member, but you don't need to go to Rotary International to do that. You simply do it in DaCdb, and that automatically populates. So what I need to do is to come over to show you a live version of it. I'm going to need to go back to my club. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to strictly come over here, go here. And then I'm going to, since I'm in my club, I'm going to be myself again. And now I should be able to go over and go to my club. And right now, here's my ROI compare. When I click on my ROI compare, we're now looking at, obviously, these are all scrambled names and that sort of thing. So what I'm looking at is it's gone out and said, okay, Rotary International, what do you have on this particular member? It's pulling in that data. Okay, and that's my member compare. And this is really, really important from a secretary standpoint, that you take a look at the member compare both in June and in December, because what happens is if these members are not correct one way or the other, you're going to either have a incorrect billing, either because you have a member you say you don't have, or you have a member you say you should have. So it's really important that you get this comparison back and forth between the two. I also have the ability, when you look at these little things right in here, I can come over to this particular member, click on it, and now I get to look at it visually, saying, okay, well, why is this particular person have these issues, which is this Scott Cadow, whoever that particular person happens to be. But now I can see I've got a start date problem. Rather than go to Rotary International, I simply click on this start date problem and bring it down. Same principle with here in this particular case, there's no name over here, and the same thing along we have over here. So basically all you're doing is clicking back and forth between the two all the way down. When you hit close, then all what should happen is that particular start date issue, as you can see, has been changed. So there are some clubs that don't want Rotary International to have, let's just say, their phone numbers, maybe their email addresses. So this is not uncommon to have red areas in here. But if something's perfect, like in this case, it's going to be absolutely blank. Everything's going to be perfect and that sort of thing. Also very important during this time of year is to make sure that you get your officers in place. So if we come over here, I'm going to click on the officer compare. I'm going to run into, and now you can see all of my members for the next 2 years, including this year and next year, already in. And all I did is I went to the positions area, put them in, and automatically they uploaded right into Rotary International. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's perfect by any stretch. Even when you add a new member, it's always a good idea when you add a new member or you make a position change, especially in these 5 areas or 6 areas that RI wants you to have. You want to make sure that that happened, because there can be multiple types of reasons why something didn't go up. A lot of times it'll happen where, well, you didn't put a birth date in, or the address isn't correct. So there's multiple reasons why, and what would happen is you would have this area blank over here, but that person would be in here. But also kind of give you an idea of what's going on in that area. We also have the ability to put in the club info compare. And this length time has nothing to do with DaCdb. This has to be Rotary International. So in this case, we're known because in my club, Green Valley it's really not even a city, it's just an area, but the actual city is Henderson, so that's why you see it this way. We didn't put that into our club, we just left it as Green Valley because that's how everybody knows. But again, the same principle, I simply click a button, it downloads, or I click a button, it uploads. Lynn, do we have any questions by chance that we might be able to answer at this particular moment? Because I know I've thrown out an awful lot of stuff so far.
Yes, let's see. Yes, we do. How do you invite a member to join Rotary?
Well, now you're talking from a DaCdb standpoint?
To join DaCdb, yes.
Oh, to join. Okay. How do you join? Well, basically what happens is when you add a member, again, this is a membership program. you want to do kind of like what we had just talked about. If we go back to my club again, and we're going to come over to the admin functions. I'm going to come down to add new member. I can literally say, oh, wrong one. I want the new member one. What happened to that one? New member, sorry.
I think they want to invite somebody to join.
Okay.
I think I'm interpreting this as, you know, like you send the new member form to somebody,
Okay.
proposed
All right.
member.
Okay. So let me quickly go back over, because again, I have to worry about GDPR. I need to go back into the my 9906 Hollywood Club. And let's go into Hollywood here. Change clubs. Okay, so why I need to go move over there is that you have different member types. And so if I go into my club, you have the ability to add a what we call either a friend of Rotary, might be a guest, might be something like that, and you put them into this area in here. So all of these people, and of course it's empty because it's a test club, but okay, here we go, we come up with a couple. So you have a friend of Rotary, you have a guest or Rotarian, you can basically email them out specifically just to them, or you can add them onto your bulletins and newsletters, things of that nature. So you can keep them, apprised of what's going on within the club. As well as I said, you can, send an invite out to them and again, keep them aware of what's going on in the club.
Okay, they also would like you to show them, they're in DaCdb, they've never logged in. How do you email their login information to them?
Okay, well, and this is primarily a secretary. Now, if you happen to know your username, that's great, because as I showed you before, you're simply going to go to DaCdb.com, say, I need to get a new email. I need to get a new login. You're going to click on that button, and email is going to come to you based upon your login username. And you simply, like you do with your bank or whatever, you're going to go in and change your password, and that will do it. But from a club standpoint, you have the ability to go into Pmail, which again, we're going to get more in depth here very shortly regarding Pmail, is that I have the ability to come over here, click on select a template. I can go to what's called System, and now I have one that says your DaCdb member login. Now, if we look at this, it's going to be pretty much exactly what I just told you, because again, because of security reasons, we no longer can view your password. So what will happen when this goes out to the user, they're going to get their login name that we have in the system. They're then going to go again to DaCdb.com, and they're going to click on reset my password. They click on that, they're going to put in their username, hit the button. Within probably 30 seconds, you're going to get an email, depending upon how fast your email system is, of a login screen, and you're just going to simply log in that way.
And Mike, they can also do that right from the person's profile. If somebody in their club just asks them, they can click the button to create a password or reset it.
That's correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's all we have for now.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question. Does DaCdb have a program that we can go into that'll just take us through it at a slower pace?
Yes, and that's actually something that's kind of getting towards the end of my presentation, but since you asked the question, we'll go ahead and do it now. No problem. So there's a whole help area in here. And some of you may, especially if you've been on my emails that I've been sending out, when the world turned upside down here about a couple months ago, we decided that because of the changes and the pets being canceled and the district assemblies being canceled and that sort of thing, that we needed to create a program that allowed us to train. So for the last 6 or 7 months, 6 or 7 weeks, I would say we probably trained in excess of 4,000 people. So in doing that, we also record all of them. So when I come over here, if you come and you click on this, so I'm in help. So you just click on that help button. I'm going to go to training, And now I have all these different video trainings. We're actually going to rebuild this whole area now that we have so many videos. We're in the process of doing that as we speak. We have ones that are, we say COVID-19. We started our training going off, when Zoom became a big thing for everybody, we did a little training on Zoom. And then we have a lot of other ones. And these are basically 20-minute TED Talks. So you're not going to spend a whole lot of time, but it will at least give you an idea of some of the things like Club Verify, which I'm going to get into today as well. Or, as I said, you can come over here, and we just did, or we had in excess of over 2,000 just at this particular training. We did it twice, and that has to do with our secretary training. So if you click on the secretary training, now we have, logins, edit positions. If I go to the course, you're going to get the PowerPoint that we had created along with maybe some additional things that are going on. But most importantly, here is your video to do that. Also, if you're one who loves to read, over on this left side, this is all our written documentation. What will happen with the new layout is you're going to have the video, and right next to it are going to be all of the particular written documentation that's involved with that particular video. Okay, anything else? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to Pmail. Now, Pmail basically allows you to communicate with your club, and depending upon your club itself, by default, DaCdb sets up Pmail as being a level 4 can only send Pmail out for obvious reasons. If you're in a small club, it's probably not a big deal, but you're in a club that's 100 to 300 members, all of a sudden people think that Pmail is for them to promote whatever they've got. So that's why we make it a level 4. In my club, which is about 50 members, we decided to bring it down so that every member could Pmail. So when I talk about Pmail, which is actually called personal mail, so when you send out a Pmail, nobody knows who else got it. You have the ability, if I go into send options, I now have the ability to do email myself, show to all members email. Now again, that's showing members email. You do not have the right to reply, send it, do a reply all to back. Okay. Another area I kind of want to discuss real quickly is Google about 3 years ago came out and said, we don't like the way you're sending email. When I say we, I'm talking about the mass emailers. Said that we no longer want you to use everybody's individual email. So what we did is we basically created one single email, and it's called mailservice@dacdb.org. So when you send out an email, it's going out as mailservice@dacdb.org. But what you can do is you can override it saying nothing or saying it whoever might have been the last person that received that email. That's been one of the biggest challenges with all this is that, what'll happen is you'll send it out through DaCdb, he'll get it. But if Sally happened to be the person that sent up email under that email name, she's the one who's going to always show. By changing this in here, and mine's defaulted by Michael Soden, but you can change it to whatever you want, and that's what's going to go out. So that way it'll ensure that you're getting the correct, who's sending it out. And there's been some discussion several times over the last 2-3 years over that whole process. And then you also can do, recipients after resending, and I always have that. So it tells me right off the bat when I send a Pmail out, who may have opted out, who, if there might have been an email problem, things of that nature, but there's another area we can look at, which we'll get into in a second. So you can see right now what I did is when I opened up email or Pmail, what I have here is I have my from, I also have my to, so if I want to add members in it, and there's 4 different ways you can do this. So I'm going to click on this particular one, and because I'm at the level I'm at, I have a lot more than option than you're going to have. So if I'm going to click on, I'm going to click on clubs, and if I just want to say I'm going to take Flank Steak as one of my clubs, notice how they all joined and got in there. I also have the ability while I'm in this area to create a selected group. I don't always recommend doing that because what happens is selected group becomes a challenge where you have to maintain it. And so you're almost better off not doing it, but a lot of people like it that way. And what I mean by maintaining is, let's say a member leaves. Well, the system doesn't take it off. You have to manually go in and take them off. Or if you want to, add somebody on to that. But again, it's a very simple process. I simply would create, and go down my list, and I want this person, this person, and this person. You can see right down here, it says save group. And when I save a group, it's going to give me an option to save it either as my personal, as a club, or in my case, as a district. So I can actually take that same one, so anybody within the district, if I wanted to, can do that. Okay. We have the ability to schedule delivery. So if I click on that, I can go ahead and do it an hour, 2 hours, tomorrow, or put in a specific date of when I actually want to send it. You'll notice this is a pretty plain template. If I come over here and I do a select, I can come up and go to system, and this is one I happen to like a lot. I'm going to click on that one. Now look what I just kind of made it much more prettier as it goes out. I have the ability to save it as my own. So what I'm going to do, once I make the adjustments I want, I'm going to come up into this area right here. I'm going to click on the, a 3.5 floppy disk, which we know doesn't exist anymore, but it was at the time. I can then decide where I want to put it. In this case, I'm going to put it personal. I want it to be my default template. So I'm simply going to copy this, put it in this area. I'm going to say, yes, I want to replace existing, and I hit save. And then every time I go into my email, I have it right here. Okay, Pmail works just like all of my other other email systems. I mean, I have all my editors, that sort of thing. I can then come down here. Now, I'm assuming most people know what mail merge is, but this is called an insert tag. When I click on the insert tag, I can, and depending upon what I'm typing, I can put in a spouse's name, I can put in an image, I can do things that are pulling directly from DaCdb. And you'll get the, this little programming thing here. Or if I didn't want my home phone number, I can get rid of that, that sort of thing. When I go ahead and I hit send email, what happens is it goes over to this pending area over here. When I do the pending area, it will about 5 minutes delay time. But if it's something I really want to send out right now, I would go into this area, click on it, and say send now. But typically it's 5 minutes, and you're probably asking, why would we do that? Because believe it or not, there are a lot of people, including myself, who say, oh crap, I didn't mean to send it. This allows me to pull it back from that standpoint. Another area I like a lot is called tracking. From a tracking standpoint, I can go in and look at a particular one. Like this is one I actually sent to myself yesterday because I was doing a test. When I click on it, it's going to pop up, and I'm going to see I'm going to have a list of everybody who it went to. Has anybody opted out? Who all has read it, what has bounced, or if there were any other issues going on. I also can turn around and say, if you got somebody who hasn't read it, you can resend it to them. The key you have to be a little bit careful with in the who's read and who hasn't read is not everybody reads or actually opens up the email, especially on a smartphone, or when you're in, like in my case, in my Outlook, I only look at the view only. So we won't get the information back, but for the most part, it's not a bad guideline. We can move into, again, bounce reports. Here's when I told you a little bit about the manage the groups. This is where I would manage my groups, and I would click on, depending upon, I'm going to look at my club groups. So you can see when I see yellow, that means we have members that have terminated. And I would simply go in and click on the little edit pencil right here. I would go in here, and as I scroll down, I'm going to see somebody in here, which is interesting. It's not showing yellow here. Would be not here, terminated. And I would simply take her out, and then I would come over here and I would save it. So now you'll see that that's now set, and there's nobody deleted. And I mean, it's that simple to do that sort of thing. Then we have manage, again, manage the templates. And again, same principle. If you want to change a template, this is where you would go in and change it based upon what area that it's in. Now, I commented to you earlier when I talked about there's several different ways to send a Pmail. So you had the one that I showed you. You can hit the 2 and go up to it. You can also do Pmail all active members. So if I click on that, now what's going to happen is now I'm going to select who I want to send. I can do it by member type, which helps a lot. So when we were kind of talking a little bit about how do you invite somebody to Rotary to a meeting, you simply would come over here, and if they're a friend of Rotary, you would click on that, and all your friends of Rotary will also get that same email. The way I normally do it, for me personally, what I do is I go into my club. And now I have a list. And you'll notice like right here, all these little check marks, anytime you see a check mark, they have an email address in the system. This particular person doesn't have one. So I can either go up to, right up into here. I can click Pmail, which would then populate everybody, or I can say, no, I don't want to do everybody. I'm going to select the ones I want. And so that's the third option you have in sending Pmail. The fourth option really requires you to be at least a level 2. And where I'm going with this is I'm going into my committees. So I can literally Pmail under my committees, which is club committees. And so I have these now because I'm at the level I'm at, I can literally click on all these people and then simply click Pmail and it will automatically create all the people that are within this committee. If I happen to be part of that committee, what I would do is I would go in and say, gee, what's on club programs? And so in this case, I could, send a Daniel Craig, and who else is in here? Drew Barrymore. Again, by going up over here, clicking on Pmail, and then that would auto-populate that particular area. Let's make sure I covered all of that in Pmail. Are there any questions regarding Pmail?
We're good, Mike.
Okay. So the next little tip here is, and I know there are some clubs that are no longer doing this, but there's still a lot of clubs like mine that love to send out newsletters. Okay, and you can go to Constant Contact, that kind of stuff. But the problem you have with something like a Constant Contact is you're now taking member data, putting it into their system. Well, because of Rotary International's GDPR policy, that's really not a good thing unless you want to make sure that everybody knows that their email address or whatever you're putting into Constant Contact is there, or that they know that it's in there and they're managing it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come over here and click Bulletin. Okay. And then what I also want to do is I want to come over and create a new bulletin. So now I'm going to click on one. And then, but I don't have, let's just imagine these are not here. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click on New Template. I have all these different options. So in this case, I'm going to pick a pretty simple one. We'll just pick this particular one. So now what it's going to do is it's now brought me into an area that I'm going to build this particular bulletin. Well, what do I want to build on it? Well, obviously I don't have a header, right? So I'm going to come over to headers. And in this case, I'm just going to click and drag this one in right there. And that's kind of what it's going to look like. You have the ability to also do custom headers, things of that nature if you wanted to. Okay, well, I'm now done with that. So I'm going to go down here and then I'm going to put body. So what am I going to put in my body tags? Well, obviously these are going to be stories. So I'm going to drag in my stories. And then I'm also going to turn around and go to maybe I might put club leaders, or that's probably not a really good place for it, but I might want to put in, where am I looking here? I was looking for my events, or it might even be my speakers. So I'm just going to simply drag in my speakers. Okay, so now I've got this little blue area over here, which is considered my sidebar. So when I click on my sidebar, I'm going to, again, get a lot more options in here. So in this case, I'm going to put in my speakers. I might even put in my club meeting, which I'm going to put above that. And then might be putting in my district or my club leaders. I'm going to put in that. Okay, so pretty much I've now kind of built what I want here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save. And I'm just going to put in, we'll call it 6990 test. I could put in a description here, but I'm just going to hit submit. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to find that, since I have so many in these test areas here, where are we here? Okay, so now what I have here is I can go to what's called advanced build. I also have the ability to go back in and edit that template, and every now and then you might want to do it, but let's kind of play with it for a little bit here. So I'm going to go to advanced build. So what I have here in advanced build is I have some stories, which we're going to get into in a minute. So in order to build my content, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 stories. I don't know what these demos are, but we'll see what they are. I'm going to then, once I highlight them, I'm going to bring them over. Okay, I also have what kind of story separator. In this case, I don't have a story separator, and I may just pick 4. Here are my speakers. I have several different options as from a speaker standpoint of how I want it to look. I'm just going to leave it the way it is right now. I also can put an end date for my speakers. Okay, from a sidebar standpoint, right now we have sidebar for the club meetings. We want to make sure the Rotary Club is, and I don't really need provisional club. And then also, again, from a speaker standpoint, I move my speakers over. So I actually have it in 2 areas, which is probably something you wouldn't want to do. And then my club leadership. And again, I have the option to how do I want to show pictures? Do I not want to show pictures? Things of that nature. So let's kind of play around here, and we're going to go ahead and build it. And let's kind of see what happens. So now I've gone ahead and I've done this, and there it is. I mean, literally, it was 5 minutes worth of my time. The biggest challenge you're going to have is building the stories. You know, and assuming I'm happy with this, what I would then do is I would go and I can send a test email, or again, I'm going to hit a save on this. And again, so if I go, okay, so now I'm going to put this in here, and I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay. And then now, since I saved it, I also need to publish it. So here we go. Here's a 6990 test. I need to publish it. When I click on the publish, now this allows me to now P-mail it out. So I'm simply going to go back into P-mail again. I'm not sorry, that's what I'm saying, P-mail bulletin. And now you'll see that particular one is now on the bottom. So I can put it to archive if I want to. I can delete it at this particular moment. I can go do edit, or I can simply P-mail it. When I P-mail it, now again, I'm going to get more options. So again, we talked about inviting a member, making sure they stay engaged with you. You're simply going to go over to Friends of Rotary or whatever you want to call it and add them to it. You hit, send P-mail. And now all of a sudden you can see it right in here. Now I would be very careful with some of this. If you'll notice, I still have the ability to start changing things. The challenge is when I hit that publish P-mail, I created a PDF. And so now I've got a PDF of that that's going to automatically go into the newsletter area, so that if you happen to have a DaCdb website, automatically they're going to populate to do that. So you just got to be a little bit careful where you're doing that. And that sort of thing. So let's quickly run over to stories, because you saw all these stories in here were all created. Well, how were they created? They basically were done through what we call our stories area. And I think I have it covered. No, I don't. It's in here. Club stories. So now you're going to see a whole bunch of stories. So if I want to create a story, I simply add a story. I put a story name. I put a headline. In this particular moment, it's in draft mode. I have the ability, and this really deals more from a website standpoint than it does from the from the bulletin side of it, because you can cross-pollinate, because we all get our content differently. So you want to make sure that the users are reading your stories, so you put them in the bulletin, and you also put them in the on your website. You can also set up, like in my case, if I know my 5 next speakers for the next 5 weeks, what I would do is I would create my stories for them and have them turn on and turn off based upon when they're actually speaking. As we come down here, this is called a thumbnail. So if I wanted to put in a little thumbnail image in my story, I could do that. I can say this is where I want it to post. So I'm going to have it post on my website. I'm going to have it post on my Easy Bulletin. I also can put it on my homepage and my dashboard. I can say who's the story date of it, the byline of it. I can put who edited. I can also put a story separator in there. I can also, if I'm not the one who wrote the story, I get all my members and I click the members that I want in doing it. I would ignore the role key down here and also the SQL. Those are some added features for more high level profiling, high level programmers. Okay, so now I've got this set up. I'm going to move over to story date. Story content. So you're going to see 2 dialog boxes. The first one is, this is the stuff you're going to actually see on that front page that you saw. but you also, it may be a 10 paragraph story. You don't really want to put 10 paragraphs on the opening page. So what you do is you put in your first paragraph, then you basically, all the other 9 are sitting in here. And then automatically what happens is that as the user's reading it, they're going to have a read more option. And as you can see, you can put in your story, you can put in your links, you can put in pictures, things of that nature. All of that is all included. So it's a full-blown editor from that standpoint. And then obviously all I simply do is hit save. The thing you always have to remember when you're creating these things is make sure that you show it published, because so often people will create the story, go over to Easy Bulletin, and they say, I can't see it. Well, it's because you didn't publish it, that sort of thing. You also have this setup area where you can limit who has the ability to access stories, to basically edit the story and also publish the story. Okay, any questions on that? Okay. Seeing none, we're then going to move on to, we covered Easy Bulletin. Let's talk about event calendar. And this is actually, could be a training, 3-hour training unto itself, and the capabilities of what this system can do for you. To let you all know, I actually run my RALA program, which is about 350 kids and another 250 kids that we send up for what we call the middle school RALA program. And I run it all through this into our calendar of events. So if I click on calendar events, you're now going to see, like in this case, we already have one that's set up for multi-district, but based upon what you want to view, you're simply going to click on these buttons to see what you want to see. This particular one has a show only those that are registered. So there's a lot of control you have when you're looking at the calendar. When we move over to add the event, I have the ability to go ahead and this one's going to be Hollywood because it's done as a club meeting. I can make it a club event, which then appears on all the other websites throughout the district and the district website if they're using the DaCdb websites to do it. I can also put my speaker in here. I can put in a topic, or I can not worry about that and just put all my information into this description, location. I then come down here and we're going to leave it on today, and we're going to do this because I'm going to create this particular event, and I'm going to go ahead and hit oops, what do I got here? Where's my update? Oh, I guess it's add event. Okay, so I click on the add event, and now all of a sudden it's been added. But also please note, I now have the ability where it says enable registration. This is now, and notice you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tabs. When I do this, all of a sudden now we're going to go to, and I click update. Now all of a sudden I got all these different options. This allows me to schedule. It allows me to set a location. It allows me to include images. It allows me to include in the links. So when you want to put it on a public website, you're simply going to copy probably this one because this is for public registration, and you put that into your website or whatever else you want to let people know to go ahead and make a registration. There's several options involved in this. Again, the gateway. So if you want to take credit cards online, you might have a gala going on, things of that nature. You could go ahead and sell tickets for that. You can sell tables. There's a whole resource manager that you can put in there that would allow you to actually put people on the tables, that sort of thing. You can check people in either by barcoding or by manually putting them in. You can ask certain questions. So in other words, like it might for public, if you're trying to grab information about that particular member, so you can email them later. You can actually ask them certain questions. The thing you got to be careful with that is if you ask too many questions, they will no longer probably want to register because you're asking them too many personal questions. So you always kind of want to be careful with that, when you do that. And then here you can also send out, like a very good example of that where you would use this area is that when you send a confirmation out, you can put in like the link for your Zoom meeting. Because obviously you don't want the Zoom meeting links out to everybody and their brother. You also have the ability in here, and you'll notice there's notification. You can actually send out notifications a day in advance of a registration. So that might be where you would put in your Zoom information on there. We are also going to take this and add it to the regular event. So like I'm sure your president, as we still continue to be online here, there'll be a notification option there that you'll be able to do exactly what I'm talking about, is that the president can send it out as a reminder the day before of the meeting. You'll have your Zoom meetings and that sort of thing.
Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to interrupt you momentarily. We need to wrap up in the next couple of minutes.
Okay.
I think there's tons of ways you could, things you could cover, but probably for now, we need to be able to wrap up.
Okay.
So if anybody has any last minute questions, be sure. And Mike, please, if you have here's something you've got to know, please go ahead and share.
That's exactly, I'm actually almost done, believe it or not. I tried to pick the 5 to do it, but to me, these are the most important from a user standpoint to use the system the way it was intended to be used. So one quick area that I want to cover, and it's called, we just actually did a training on it. It's called Club Verify, which allows you to go in, take your members and email them and have them verify their information. So what you would do is you would come up here, you would click your Pmail. You would then come over here and do your, select your template. You come up to system. You then come down to, where is it, 15B or W. I happen to like the white one only because it's easier to read. When I click on that, you'll notice that all of your information is already populated into the system. And then on the bottom, is everything good? Great, you verify it, it goes back to the system, they've been verified. If not, it will automatically log them into their profile to be able to do it. And so that was kind of my little additional tip. I also want to remind everybody that there are premium modules for DaCdb, which is the website, finance, and engagement. We're more than happy. We have trainings on all of them, so you guys go take a look at it. But the more important thing I want to make to you today is we are doing a promo from now until the end of July. I just extended it out where you're going to get 50% off on each one of the modules you select to pick. Plus, we're also going to drop the setup fee by significantly. So normally it's like $220. We're going to drop it to $159. And that, again, you guys go in and go into the shopping cart and you simply click what you want to buy, bring it over here. And then there are also tests for all of these too. So if you're not sure you want to buy, there's a 30-day test on every one of them. Other than that, I know it's 9:52. So if you need to get a hold of DaCdb, as we kind of talked about before, there's several different ways you can do it. You can submit a ticket, you can do emails, or you can talk to all of us live by simply dialing that number and clicking the extension that you want. Other than that, thank you very much for your time. Again, please feel free to contact any of the support people or myself when it comes to any questions that you may have.
Thanks so much, Mike and Lynn. Fellow Rotarians, we should give them a nice round of applause, virtual applause. Really appreciate it. I think that you see what a valuable resource and tool DaCdb is. And I think I've seen some true experts on here, Debbie. And I know that she probably still learned things as well. So I want to remind you all that we have a closing plenary. Let me just clarify. The plenaries you link in through the original email you got from Peter. It came from Peter Verbeck. It says final plenary on it. Please link in, click on those links to get back into the plenary. We're going to close this session now and see you all in about 7 minutes. Thank you, Mike and Lynn.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it very much.
Okay, well, see y'all later.
Bye.